Welcome to the Autism ADHD Podcast. It's the place to be for neurodiversity affirming parents and professionals. I'm your host, Holly Blanc-Moses, the mom neurodivergent therapist. Here we chat about emotional regulation, mental health, social support, executive functioning, learning, and more, all aimed at empowering us to support kids and teens with compassion and understanding. I'm thrilled that you joined me today, and I've got some pretty exciting news to share with you. For those rock star therapists listening right now, I've created continuing education training that is tailor-made for you. Take a deep dive into cutting-edge strategies that you can start using today. The CEs you've wanted for so long are finally here. Go to hollyblancmoses.com/CE training and sign up. You are going to love it. The link is also available in the show notes. Now, if you are a parent or educator listening and you know a therapist or a psychologist that is passionate about supporting kids and teens, I greatly appreciate it if you could pass on this great news. Thanks so much again for your support, and let's get started. Welcome back to the Autism ADHD Podcast. For those who are regular listeners, thank you for being incredibly loving and supportive. And I do really appreciate when you share episodes. If you are a new listener, we are excited that you're joining us, and I hope that you get a lot of helpful information from the podcast. About today's episode, whether you're a parent of an autistic and or ADHD child, or a therapist who works with neurodivergent children and families, I think this one is going to hit somewhere deep. I want to start with two stories that just recently happened, just within 2 days of each other. I wasn't planning on even recording this topic this week, but these two moments, when they showed up back to back, I thought, okay, I think this is something I need to cover. I was walking my dog in the neighborhood. It was a beautiful day in North Carolina, and I ran into my neighbor who just lives a couple blocks away. She was also walking her dog. She's a very lovely person, and I trust her. She told me about a young man that's been helping her in her yard and how wonderful he was. He's a hard worker. He follows her directions, shows up on time, does what he says he's going to do. He's very responsible. And she was clearly really happy about it. And then she said it. His mother raised him right. When I hear this, it's like a punch in the gut. Now, she did not mean any harm. I want to be clear about that. She was just talking about how this young man was helping her. She was complimenting him, and that's a great thing. She was simply expressing her appreciation for him. But stay with me here, because his mother raised him right lands differently when you're a parent of a neurodivergent child. Moment. I could be well, or I could be open and vulnerable. So I made the decision to say something. I said, when I hear someone say, his mother raised him right, it makes me physically ill. I explained that society assumes and has this way of categorizing people, good and bad, good kids, good parents, bad kids, bad parents. And I said, just because my kids don't always show up in ways that society considers good doesn't mean they aren't good. It doesn't mean that I haven't raised them well. It doesn't mean that I'm not a good parent. Neurodivergent kids and their parents are so often shamed. We get the side eye from strangers when our child is dysregulated in public. We get comments from our own family members. We get nasty looks from the neighbors. We get looks from the parents at school pickup. Sometimes we get it from teachers and from others in the community. Every single one of these moments lands like a verdict. You are a bad parent, and your child is a bad kid. My neighbor heard me. She really did hear me. She said, I am so sorry. I did not mean to hurt you. I just teared up and tears started flowing down my face. The conversation that she and I had was amazing. And I love that we had the opportunity to talk about this important topic without blame or shame. These conversations matter. We thanked each other and we both felt understood. And wouldn't you believe it, 2 days later, I'm at the dollar store. Now it's the $1.75 store. I was there because we have a treasure box at my private practice in Raleigh, and it was running a little bit low, and I wanted to get some more fun things for our clients. So I'm checking out, and the cashier starts some small talk. Again, I have a lot of things that I'm getting there, so we have quite a while to chat. So she starts telling me about kids these days, how they hand her crumpled up dollars when they're paying, how their parents don't bother to smooth out the bills first, how kids don't say please and thank you anymore, and how parents just don't raise them right, how parents just don't care. Then she lights up. She tells me about a little girl not long ago who came through her line, and this little girl had a cute little wallet, and every single dollar bill was smoothed out perfectly, perfectly flat, neatly placed in her wallet. She said the little girl smiled at her, counted out her money, handed it over, and said, thank you. The cashier was smiling and said, her mother raised her right. Are you serious? Is this actually happening again right now? At that moment, I had to make a decision. The old Holly would have said, and quietly died inside. But I did decide to say something. I told her some adults and children find it easier to stay organized than others. I told her that when I was a little girl, I was that kid that came up so excited with a crumbled up dollar bill and maybe some coins that made absolutely no sense for the cost of what I was buying. And I told her, as an adult, if I'm using cash, they're probably gonna be crumbled up too. I talked to her about what it's like for kids whose brains work differently, about how a child handing over crumpled dollars may not be disrespectful. They might just be a kid whose brain isn't wired for that kind of organization yet. And it may not occur to them that the cashier would prefer to have them flattened out. Maybe it's a child whose nervous system is already overwhelmed before they even get into a store. And the sounds and the smells and the crowds can be really difficult, just like they were really difficult for me that day. I'm not sure how much landed. Like I said, I didn't know this person. But both of those people, my neighbor, the cashier, they're not bad people. They were not trying to hurt me. They are living in the same society the rest of us live in, a society that's been teaching us for generations and generations to sort people into good or bad, right and wrong, raised well and raised poorly. And that sorting is doing enormous damage, especially to neurodivergent kids and their families. So let's talk about the good kid, bad kid narrative, the raised right, raised wrong narrative. I want to talk about 5 reasons why this narrative harms us. And I want you to really be with me on these because I'm not just talking theoretically. I'm talking about real kids, real families, and real damage. Reason 1, it turns neurological differences into moral failures. When society sees a child melting down in the grocery store, they think bad kid. When they see a child who can't sit at a restaurant, they're wiggling around, maybe they're under the table. My child used to do that. Their brain thinks bad parenting. They're taking what is actually a neurological difference and labeling it as a character flaw. An autistic child who's overwhelmed by sensory input is not being bad. An ADHD child who can't wait their turn isn't being disrespectful. A child who hands over crumpled dollars isn't being rude. Their brains work differently. That is information. That is not a moral verdict. And here's the kicker. When we keep telling that child through words and looks and sighs and comments that their behavior means something bad about who they are as a person, they start to believe it. Of course they do. They internalize it. And that becomes the story they tell themselves for the rest of their lives. I am bad. I am broken. Something is wrong with me. I was that kid. Everything I do is wrong. I'm bad. What is wrong with me? I should be able to do this. Reason 2, it creates devastating shame in children and their parents. I want to say this clearly because I don't think that we talk about this enough. Shame is not a motivator. You're not doing a favor when you shame us or shame our children. Shame is not a teaching tool. It's a wound. Shame is a wound. When a neurodivergent child has a meltdown, for example, and a stranger gives their parent a look, and you know that look, if you're a parent listening right now, that parent doesn't suddenly become a better parent because of the nasty look. That parent doesn't suddenly become a better parent when a family member feels like they need to comment or criticize your parenting. What happens to that parent is they become even more anxious. They may find themselves isolating. And what's really hard too is that shame travels. Parents are human beings carrying wounds. And sometimes, and I'll own this too, sometimes it spills over onto our kids. We may even say to our own kids, why couldn't you just behave? Why do you always do this? Parents feel so overwhelmed themselves because shame is heavy. It's so heavy that sometimes it spills out of us onto our kids who already have enough. Parents are already carrying so much. The appointments, the IEPs, the therapies, the constant advocacy. When I mean constant, I mean constant. This isn't a once-a-year deal. They have so much fear about their child's future. And on top of that, they're navigating a world that is quietly, and sometimes not so quietly, telling them that they're doing it wrong. And that's not okay. I'm glad that I am finally growing that little backbone of mine. I was able to have the bandwidth in these 2 moments to explain this to the neighbor and the cashier. Reason number 3, it makes neurodivergent kids less safe. This one is really important. I don't think it gets talked about enough. When a child is taught through all of these messages, the side eyes, the criticism, the comments, they're completely unnecessary, that who they are is wrong. They stop telling the truth about their experience. They learn to mask. They learn to perform. They learn to twist themselves so they can look like this quote unquote good kid, even when they're drowning on the inside. Because the cost of being seen as the bad kid is so high. And that masking the performance of being fine, right? You have to be acceptable. You can't be weird. You can't struggle. All this leads to burnout, anxiety, and depression. It leads to kids who are in crisis, and nobody sees it coming because they've been programmed to hide themselves. They've been programmed that they're not supposed to struggle. They're supposed to be fine. They're not asking for help because asking for help means admitting you're struggling. They had maybe even asked for help before. You're smart. You can do it. You should be able to do that. Figure it out yourself. You need to learn to do things yourself. Asking for help isn't easy either. So they're keeping all of this inside. In my 28 years of working with neurodivergent kids, I have to say that in the last year or so, I have seen a rise in self-harm because these kids are carrying so much shame. We need to help them understand that they are not bad. They are not bad. Their parents are not bad. And they are lovely the way they are. You can see how this cycle works. Reason 4, it isolates families at the very moment they need community. When I was in those moments, the dog walk, the dollar store, I felt my stomach drop, the hyper awareness, the mental calculation of whether it's worth saying something or not. It's exhausting. And I'm not the only one. I'm sure you get it too. You've had the same experience. So parents of neurodivergent kids, they often pull back from community. from family events, from restaurants, from school functions, from neighborhood gatherings, because the cost of being there is too high. The risk of a meltdown, the risk of the looks, the risk of the comments, the risk of having to explain over and over again that your child isn't bad and you're not a terrible parent. And isolation is one of the most dangerous things for both parents and children. And we need community. We do. We need connection. We need people who see us clearly and don't make us feel like a burden or a bother. But when society keeps sorting families into this raised right and raised wrong, it makes it very, very hard to find that community. Because even the kind neighbors, even the well-meaning cashiers are carrying these frameworks that are handed down to them by our society that does not understand autistic and ADHD kids and adults. So what do? We stay home, we show up less, we try to protect ourselves and our kids from the pain of being seen as bad, being seen as less. And then that isolation has a cost to our mental health, to our relationships. I remember being that parent, scared to go to birthday parties, to have people over, to go over somewhere and visit a family, to even go out and play in the neighborhood. Reason 5, definitely not the last one, because I could keep going on and on, but this will be the last one I talk about today. It erases the invisible and huge effort of neurodivergent parenting. And so I'm talking directly to the parents right now. So I want you guys to hear this. What you are doing is extraordinary. I don't even use that word often, but I think it's needed here. Extraordinary. The level of advocacy, creativity, patience, learning, adjusting, celebrating, fighting, and loving that goes into parenting a neurodivergent child, it is unlike anything most people will ever understand. You have learned about neurology, executive functioning, sensory processing, emotional regulation, child development. You probably know more than some professionals do. Not because you went to school for it, but because you show up for your child. You have sat in IEP meetings and fought for your child. You have called schools and advocated, pushed back, asked the hard questions. You've found the mental health therapist, the occupational therapist, the speech therapist, the tutor. You have researched and read and listened to the podcasts. It's like you have an honorary degree. And none of that effort is recognized, understood when some person looks sideways at your kid, when they're just trying to get through the day, just trying to get in the store, just trying to make it to the next class. The mothers and the fathers and the caregivers who are raising neurodivergent children are some of the most dedicated, most amazing humans that I have ever seen. They are doing such beautiful things. They are trying so hard. There is massive effort there, yet they live in the world that keeps telling them they're doing it wrong, shaming them and shaming their child. And it needs to stop. So you might be thinking, okay, Holly, what can we actually do about this? I am not going to tell you to go start arguments with people who make statements like this. I'm not going to say that's a good idea. I'm not. I don't want to see you arrested or anything like that. But what I want to offer instead is if you have the capacity and you feel like it's a safe situation, maybe you can try saying something the way I did with my neighbor. I didn't shame her. I didn't lecture her. I wasn't mad at her. I just opened the door for that conversation. I said, here's another way to think about this. And she heard me. She really did. I didn't have control over whether she would respond in any kind of way. That's her part. But I felt good about my part, how I showed up. I know that I can feel good about the way I showed up for that conversation. When you hear these phrases, allow yourself maybe to just name what you're feeling. You don't have to swallow it. You don't have to take it inside. You don't have to act like you're fine. It's okay to say to your partner, friend, whoever, that it landed hard, that it hurt, because it did. And your feelings are valid. So maybe a step in the direction is just to name it and just to share it, that it hurt. No matter what their response is, you are taking a step. That's your part. Also, it's going to be important to find your people. Find the parents and the professionals who get it, who aren't sorting kids into good and bad categories, who aren't sorting parents into good and bad categories. People who understand that behavior is actually just what you see on the outside. There's always a reason for it. You deserve a community that sees your child clearly and that also sees you clearly and appreciates you for who you are. Last but not least, please, 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 let's work on noticing when we're saying these things to ourselves and our own kids. It's something that I'm also working on. And these words, good, bad, they were handed to us. We didn't choose them. But what we can do is choose what we say now. We can choose what we say to our kids. We can choose what we say to ourselves, because many of us, we have these I'm not good enough stories. We compare ourselves to other parents, other professionals. We compare our kids without even trying to. When we take a step back, we can notice more about, are we participating in this ridiculous societal framework? And it takes practice because it's been soaked into us. I'm glad to say that with a lot of practice, I have been able to catch it so much sooner than before when I'm comparing myself to someone else, when I hear the gut punch phrases, when I see the side eye, because I was that kid. It's soaked into me that I just was not good enough. Nothing I did was good enough. I am bad. And I'm so thankful that I'm working on being able to step back and catch it sooner. Because we don't want our kids to feel this way. We don't want to feel this way. The more we talk about it, the more that we educate, the more that we practice, the more that we notice, we don't have to accept the way things have been. We can change. things for the better. I truly believe that. Thank you so much for joining me today. And we'll see what happens the next time someone says that in front of me. His mom raised him right. We'll see what happens. Take care. Bye-bye. If you found this podcast helpful, I greatly appreciate it if you could take a second to give it a 5-star review. With your positive feedback, I can continue bringing you free, valuable information. In the show notes, you'll find links to resources on supporting neurodivergent kids and teens. Take care, and I look forward to seeing you next time.
All content provided is protected under applicable copyright, patent, trademark, and other proprietary rights. All content is provided for informational and educational purposes only. No content is intended to be a substitute for professional medical or psychological diagnosis, advice, or treatment. Information provided does not create an agreement for service between Holly Blanc-Moses, Crossvine Clinical Group, the interviewee, Holly Blanc-Moses LLC, and the recipient. Consult your physician regarding the applicability of any opinions or recommendations with respect to your symptoms or medical condition or the symptoms or medical condition of your family member. Children or adults who show signs of dangerous behavior toward themselves and/or others should be placed immediately under the care of a qualified professional.